welcome to this installment of Frank and Mary in Westborough. I am your host, Shelby Marshall. Normally I'm accompanied by co-host Arthur Bergeron, who really is the funniest of the two of us, and he keeps track of time. So one, I'm responsible now for keeping us on time, which I'm terrible at, and being funny, which I don't know, I guess the jury's out on that. But at any rate, he had a prior commitment and we had a scheduling change, so Arthur's not with us today. But I am very excited to welcome our guests today. We have Kate Storm and Alan Edinberg. Many of you may know Alan. He is currently the chair of the Westborough Board of Selectmen. I'm proud to serve with him. And he's also a member of the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust. Kate may not be known as well because she doesn't get as much TV time because Alan, is like front and center now as chair. But Kate is also a member of the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust. And they're on today to talk about a really exciting and important program that the trust is leading. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to them and have them introduce this program. So welcome.
Thank you, Shelby.
Yeah, thank you, Shelby, for having us here. What we're pleased to announce and share with your audience and with the Westborough community is that the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust, with additional financial assistance from the Westborough COVID-19 Community Fund, is offering COVID-19 emergency rental assistance. So for families whose income has been impacted by COVID-19 and may be struggling to stay current with the rent or maybe behind on the rent, we have some help. And I think it's best to start out sort of, why are we doing this and what's the need? And so I'll share my screen here and Kate will talk a little bit to the need, and then we can talk about who's eligible and what the grants look like and how people can apply.
Thanks, Alan. So the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission did a study this past year to kind of figure out what is the need for rental shortages in our community. And as of October of 2020, there was a shortfall of over $100,000 between what people owe and what people can afford for their rent in Westborough. So that's Westborough specific. So, just that study alone showed us that we definitely have a need for some sort of emergency rental assistance related to COVID-19. And then also, thankfully, we have a really wonderful giving community who came together and put together a COVID relief fund right here in town through the Westborough Cares Coalition. And we have a COVID-19 community fund that has really come to the help of many families here in Westborough over the past year due to COVID. And they were hoping to be able to give grants to folks for a lot of different reasons for COVID this past year, but really what it came down to was their priority and their top need was housing. There were so many requests for rental assistance that they couldn't grant any other funds or any other help besides rental assistance this past year. So that's something that we recognized through the study that was done from the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, and also through our own anecdotal evidence of this Community Cares COVID relief fund, that people were really, really in need for rental assistance.
Kate, if I can just jump in and just having sort of seen things through the lens of the community fund, I just want to emphasize 2 points that you just made. One is absolutely the need coming through on the grant side, but 90% of it has been for rental assistance. We have amazing support through our food pantry. So some of the nutritional needs and other needs and utilities were much smaller. Rental backlog of rental payments and all of that was definitely the highest need. And the fund initially collected about $30,000 in its first round of fundraising, and allocated grants in about $1,000, a maximum of $1,000 per family. And I think you guys are going to talk a little bit about how this program is a little different, because when you really think about rent here in Westborough, $1,000 is really scratching the surface, but the intent of the fund and the giving community, the giving grant team, was that they wanted to be able to spread it across as many people as possible. So anyway.
Yeah, no, thank you for clarifying that. And I think that that really speaks to the need here in Westborough, and also just the priority needing in the fact that we have such a giving community, and we have a lot of resources available here in Westborough, including our food pantry and including some nonprofits who have helped connect folks to a lot of other assistance, which leads us to that last bullet point there, which is that there are other state programs out there. And there are other community programs out there to help with all sorts of different things, including rental assistance. But the reality is that those programs are really complex. Sometimes they fall short of what the need is. Sometimes the process in which to apply for those takes such a long time that landlords aren't willing to accommodate those rental assistance programs. And so, and it also, there's restrictions on those rental assistance programs from a landlord perspective. So even though there are a lot of programs out there to help, the need is still there, and it doesn't completely tie up all those needs. So this Westborough Housing Affordable Housing Trust is, really excited about the opportunity to provide emergency rental assistance for COVID-19 to fill that gap.
Okay, so when we talk about who's eligible for the rental assistance, eligibility is done by household. You need to be a Westborough resident, so you're renting a place to live here in Westborough. That can be an apartment with a lease. You could be month to month. You could be renting space in someone else's home or apartment. It can be, so it can be a formal rental arrangement or an informal rental arrangement. You need to be able to show that your income has been reduced due to COVID-19, which could be losing your job or being forced to change jobs or fewer hours or cut in pay. And your household income needs to be what's less than 80% of what's known as the area median income. And this is the standard measure by which the state and the federal government use to determine eligibility for affordable housing, for most affordable housing. And that scales with the size of your household. So in Westborough, if you're living alone and your household income is below $55,350, you're eligible. If you're a family of 5, that threshold is $85,400. And so it's a wide range, and it really does scale, based on the household. And if you've got questions about your eligibility, we're going to suggest you apply because, don't think you're ineligible and not apply. If you're concerned, if you're struggling, apply, and we'll work out the eligibility. The grants, our grants will provide up to 4 months of assistance. These will be monthly payments made directly to your landlord, which the landlord can apply to the current month or to back rent. We know that as we sort of starting to come out of COVID and things are opening up and employment's getting a little better, you might be, bringing home enough in your family to make this month's rent, but you still owe all or part of your rent for past months. That's fine. You're still eligible. You'll still get your grant. And the monthly grants are based on the size of your home. So for a 1-bedroom, the grants are $600 a month. For a 3-bedroom, it's $900 a month. And as part of that grant process, your case manager will connect you with resources to help see if you qualify and help you apply to the state grants programs as well, which have significantly more money. And there's actually a lot of money in those programs now that can help you become current with your rent and stay current going forward. And so our hope is that our emergency rental assistance gives you housing security while you can apply and receive those larger grants from the state and that other assistance.
Alan, can you just go back one slide there? Just
Sure.
So the payments directly to the landlord, I think that's really important because I know that there's been some, both from a giving perspective, so people that want to continue to give to the Westborough Community Fund, and I know we'll talk about that in a few minutes here. But there's always a concern of, who's going to get the ultimate payment, right? So if I'm giving, how do I know this is sort of a legitimate program? As well as how are, and really for me, even more importantly, how are residents protected that, that landlords will accept this money and address or adjust rent accordingly, so that the problem isn't ongoing as a systemic problem.
Right. So the payments go directly to landlords for a couple of reasons. One, in doing so, the payments aren't considered income for the renter, so they won't affect any renter's eligibility for future affordable housing. We don't obviously want to help someone in the long term, in the short term, and create a long-term problem for them. And part of that is the landlords have to sign a contract with the renter and the program, which, among other things, stipulates that they're not going to use the money for back rent and evict you anyways, right? There's some protections in there. And part of the intent of the program isn't just to help households and families stay in their apartment and have housing security. It's also to make sure that, landlords, and we have so many small landlords, families who've invested in a building or two or three, to make sure that they're getting revenue, right? So that they can afford to pay the rent and the insurance and do the maintenance that's necessary. So it works for everyone there. And all of this is being tracked and managed. The Housing Trust is contracted with a nonprofit out of Newton, Metro West Collaborative Development, that is running these programs for many municipalities and many programs, and has expertise in it and has the caseworkers and the resources to make sure it's administered properly and the money's managed properly and the agreements are all in place.
This is a pretty amazing, sorry. The Affordable Housing Trust was set up to, look at, evaluate, create long-term housing opportunities, right? That would be affordable for a variety of people, demographics, age, et cetera, et cetera. Talk to us a little bit about that decision from a trust perspective. Kate, I'd love to hear your perspective on, utilizing trust funds for this purpose. So can you just give us some insight into the conversation that the trust had to get to this, very important decision?
Oh, you need to unmute.
Sorry, do you want to go first?
No, you can go first.
Well, thanks. So, this is definitely something that the Affordable Housing Trust, I don't think, anticipated when it first envisioned itself a while back, because it was looking more at long-term sustainable affordable housing options for Westborough. The reality is that we have a pandemic that has impacted many families here in Westborough to afford to to live in Westborough in the first place is difficult. And then to stay here once you are here has proven to be incredibly difficult with this pandemic, with people's loss of income. And so it was something that we felt like we could, this is a short-term solution for a long-term problem. And so we recognized that, and we decided to dedicate a certain amount of funds for this particular cause, and there is a time limit. This fund will end, and we are also concurrently working on long-term affordable housing plans, which we'll be talking about tomorrow at our next Affordable Housing Trust meeting.
Well, I think it's a courageous move. I really do, because I think the trust could have said, we're sure going to stay in this lane, and to go right or left of that is, just something, particularly being newly established, right? Just recently at our town meeting. So I applaud the trust really for doing this and addressing, opening the aperture, so to speak, to address the need. Alan, I'm going to finally let you get to that next slide you wanted to show.
Okay, as I pull up that next slide, I also want to, mention that, given the timing of when town meeting created our trust and the time it takes to get up and running, you know, at the point we started discussing it, over 100 communities in Massachusetts had initiated some form of emergency rental assistance. And many of those programs, the majority of those programs, are using Community Preservation Act or housing trust funds that would typically be used for longer term strategic issues. And it really just goes to the intensity and the severity of the impact of the pandemic. And as Kate mentioned, we're still looking at our long-term plans. This isn't stopping us, and it's not stopping us from a financial perspective. And I'm happy to say it's not stopping us from a bandwidth and enthusiasm and effort of the trustees, you know, themselves, and that we're able to. It looks like we're able to walk and chew gum at the same time.
That's great.
I do want to let people know how to apply. We have a case manager for the program in Westborough. Applications are due April 20th, 2021 by 5 p.m. It's an online application process. So if people email Markeisha Dixon at the Metro West Collaborative Development or call her at 617-893-3979, she will provide the link and the password to start the online application. If someone doesn't have great internet access or needs help, she will help fill out the application for you online. You can upload your documents and she will help you do that. I know that, you know, even if you have to take a picture of your bank statement or the screen and text it to her, she'll collect it and get it into your file. If you do need, if that doesn't work and you do need to deliver physical copies of things, at the town manager's office, they're envelopes. And they're pre-labeled, and you can put your documents in the label and leave it at the town manager's office. We'll collect it and get it to Markeisha. We've got a system for that as well, but she'll help you through it. There's real-time translation and TTY services available as well. If people want more information, they can contact the town's COVID hotline at 508-871-5111 or by email. And on the, we also have printed materials available currently at Town Hall, in the town manager's office, at the public library. The food pantry has copies, and there'll be copies at Westborough Youth and Family Services later today. We have all those materials in 5 languages, so English, Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, and Arabic. If we need other translations, let us know. We'll do that as well. And we have info sheets with more details at those locations as well. And that information is also on the town's COVID-19 information page on the town website in all 5 languages. So application is easy. There's a lot of assistance, a lot of hand-holding if it's needed to make sure that people's application is complete and the documents are there. It's not nearly as rigorous as the state programs as far as documents, but we do need some. And you know, if you need help, we'll get it to you. We'll make sure that you can apply.
Sorry, trying to unmute myself. You'd think we'd all be experts at this point. So what happens after the application process? Like, help folks to understand that.
So the application, as people fill out their online applications and provide the documentation, the case, Markeisha, and she's got support staff, will make sure all the necessary information is there. And if not, they'll reach back out. They will actually start contacting landlords to get them into the program and make them aware of the paperwork that they're going to need to sign, et cetera. Depending on the number of applicants, we may need to do a lottery. We honestly don't know. If we do need a lottery, then that will happen on April 22nd at noon, and it'll be done online. Every applicant will receive a lottery number and can watch live as the numbers get picked, but they'll be notified by the end of the day on the 22nd of their status. And I do want to let people know that, the way the Housing Trust has funded the program is we have an initial block of money that we've committed. We have additional funds that we're using as a matching incentive for the COVID-19 Community Fund and that organization's fundraising effort towards this. And then we do have some reserve money. So if the number of applicants come in and it's slightly above that initial commitment, we can tap into that reserve money if appropriate, to handle the extra family or household or two, right? We've left it. If we can avoid a lottery, we will, but it might be necessary.
Sure. On the
And
one hand, we sort of hope that it's not necessary, right? We hope
Right.
that people are in a good space, but you've built in the flexibility in how you've structured this to allow for that, which is
Yeah.
smart. I do want to, for those that may be watching this and who may say, geez, I'm in a fortunate position. I don't need rental assistance, but I'd love to help. We'd love you to help. The COVID-19 fund, as Alan just mentioned, is trying to raise $30,000 in 30 days. The 30 days is sort of just a magical 30-30 number. We want to raise the money. So we are not quite halfway to that goal as of today. But if folks want to donate, they certainly can. And you can go to westboroughRotary.org. The Rotary Club is generously acting as the administrator of the fund because they have a 501c3, so money can be collected there. And if you have any questions, you can certainly contact me. I think Aiden can put up our questions at the end of the slide visual there, and I'd be happy to direct you to the COVID fund. But it's a dollar for dollar match. So for every dollar we raise, the trust is willing to match that up to $25,000. So Westborough, you've shown your generosity before, and then we can do it again. So with that, any closing comments, Kate or Alan, before we wrap it up?
We just want to encourage anyone who thinks that this might be something that they could be eligible for to just go ahead and apply. And Markeisha will work with that person to determine eligibility and help them get documents. So it's something that, if you're not quite sure, just go ahead and put your application in and we'll figure it out from there. Just because there is a timeline on this, we want to make sure that people access this as quickly as they possibly can.
Right. And I would say also, I think there's probably just benefit as you're going through that process. And we don't know how long, obviously the pandemic will extend its impact. And so I think it's important to kind of have your name sort of in the queue. You've gone through that experience of applying, or at least starting to apply. And even if you don't qualify there, I would imagine the contractor will even provide some other resources, like you might want to look into this program or that program. So it's, if you need the help, we have some really generous programs. Thankfully at both the state and federal level, we're actually starting to see those programs now, trickle into our community. And it's always really difficult for people to ask for help of any kind. People are proud, they don't want to, but we also don't, we don't want people to be displaced or have housing insecurity. It shouldn't happen when there are opportunities like this. So thank you for being our guest today. Thank you for the work of being a trustee on the Housing Trust, and extend that thanks, please, at your meeting tomorrow. Really proud of the work that you guys are doing. And I want to thank viewers for tuning into another episode of Frank and Mary. Arthur will be back on the show next time, and always something going on in Westborough, always good work. So thank you very much.